Today, these vertical farms are already starting to transform agriculture through a combination of biotechnology, engineering, and data science. By carefully controlling the environment, these futuristic farms have the ability to extend the growing season, meaning they're able to provide food all year round for the world's ever-expanding population. Through stacking plants vertically, they can be grown using much less space compared to traditional farming methods, where crops sprawl across vast expanses of farmland. And by placing these farms closer to urban areas, farmers can guarantee the freshness of their crops to the city-dwelling consumers because time won't be lost to transport before the plants make it to their shelves. Plus, less transport means less greenhouse gas emissions and a smaller carbon footprint, which is better for everyone. There are different types of vertical farms ranging from small scale with specialized higher value plants all the way up to large scale agriculture, the type meant to compete with mass farming operations. Farm 1 is a small scale vertical farm based in New York City and located beneath a Michelin star restaurant. It grows over 500 different microgreens and rare herbs year round. And it is the only company focused on supplying these sought-after premium ingredients directly to nearby prominent chefs within hours of harvesting. Each plant is grown hydroponically, without the use of pesticides or manure, with the most cutting-edge LED technology, which allows for maximum efficiency. Plants grown this way use a nutrient-rich solution as their growing substrate, requiring approximately 90% less water than conventional farming, which, aside from being better for the environment, also allows farmers to cut costs on unneeded water expenses. Farm 1 believes their smaller farms, located close to customers, can provide most, if not all, of the specialty produce needed for tomorrow's cities. While Farm 1 is still quite new, Aero Farms has been around since 2004 with the same goal of totally controlled agriculture. Originally located in an old warehouse in Newark, New Jersey, Aero Farms has expanded into 9 large-scale facilities worldwide.
In the next 35 years, we'll have to produce more food than all of the world's production combined over the last 2000. So, what will the farms of the future look like? Well, they're unlikely to look like this just yet, but many of the sci-fi looking elements are already on the way. Take automation. These concept robots are being designed to autonomously scout, sense, and treat invasive pests and pathogens with micro amounts of herbicide or pesticide, vastly reducing the costs and environmental impacts associated with these chemicals. This is known as precision farming, and see here how the lasers on this tractor can detect the presence of weed to only treat affected areas. And this is the Ladybird rover, a working solar-powered prototype that conducts autonomous farm surveillance, mapping and weed detection. Drones are also tipped to play a big role in the farms of the future, like this octocopter at Rothamsted Research. This BBSRC funded demonstrator technology could help the farmers of the future measure growth and biomass and detect stresses to crops from pathogens or lacks of nutrients or water. Other researchers are already using them for surveillance, sowing seeds, and even to find or herd farm animals, as you can see here. Vehicles like these utilise the latest advanced sensors, and the farms of the future will be packed with them. Multi and hyperspectral cameras, for example, can see problems that the human eye just can't, and want 24 hours a day, feeding data back to shared cloud services for analysis and action.
Growing some of your own food is one of the best things that you can do for the environment. But I live in a city where I don't have access to dirt and a garden, and so it was a challenge to find a way of growing some of my own food in the conditions that I have here locally. And so it was really just a matter of experimentation once I thought about hydroponics and how they could possibly be made to fit the conditions of a window. So hydroponics is a different way of growing, and the plant's roots actually grow differently. So in soil, they have to grow very large root systems to go find new water and nutrients in the soil. Whereas in hydroponics, you're essentially dissolving all of the food that the plant needs into some liquid and then directing that liquid directly to the plant's roots. This is a typical kind of air pump that you get at an aquarium store for your fish tank. And it is feeding a bubble into the bottom of this tube that's submerged down in the water. And so each bubble, as it rises up to the top, is carrying a little column of this nutrient-rich water on top of it, and then squirting out at the top, and then dripping down through each one of the bottles and through each one of the plants. More than 13,000 people around the world have downloaded the instructions. They've built systems in Hong Kong, in Finland. There was a whole team there that really wanted to grow vegetables during the middle of the dark days of the winter. People in every hemisphere at this point have done it. In general, a lot of kind of leafy kinds of vegetables and greens, when they come to us in the stores, they've usually been trucked for 3 or 4 days, or it's been 3 or 4 days since they were actually harvested. And throughout the course of that process, they're essentially dying. And so the leafy greens that we end up getting are usually have lost a lot of their nutritive value at that point. When I take a bite off of this kale right now, I'm getting all of the nutrients that are there in its in this living leaf.
We grow strawberries and raspberries currently, and are looking at expanding into other berries for future years.
We grow our strawberries in a somewhat unique situation. They're day-neutral strawberries, so we treat them as an annual and plant new ones every spring for harvest. Somewhere between first harvest starts about July 1st to July 20th, depending on the year a little bit. But what really makes our strawberry system unique is that we grow them in vertical, upright, hydroponic towers. So there's no bending over and picking off the ground. Everything is done from knee-high to head-high. This is our second year of production on the farm. Last year was just kind of getting things up and going and getting a lot of infrastructure built. We had some definitely major challenges last year, which the SARE grant is actually helping us figure out this year. We have about 9 acres across the whole farm that we own, and right now we just have crops in basically about 3/4 to 1 acre. The strawberries that we had about 17,000 out there when we started this spring, again, but that's all in a half-acre size. We had 3 weeks of rain literally every single day, so you'll find a few empty potholes and things out there. But that's a really good comparison of what works well under flooding and drought conditions, because we've had flood condition, well, not flood last year, but we had a lot of rain last year during the growing season. We had kind of some preliminary trials set up. We've had basically now at this point 3 weeks up until today when we record it of bone dry weather. And so I think we're going to learn a lot of good information from the trial this year.
And we already have. We've started collecting some of our data and can easily see a difference between certain of our trials of our different media as far as different take rates. So we're seeing some
plant
different
size,
results.
plant health, labor that's involved, how can we mechanize some of this, and we'll talk about all that as we go through the individual pots.
We have 15 rows of our towers out here. We have 10 rows that are 60 towers each, roughly, give or take, and then 5 that are 40 in our smaller field. And in each of the towers, so each of the 60 or 40, there are 5 of these cloverleaf pots that just snap together. And so each pot holds 4 plants, so then for each tower it's 20 obviously multiplied out for the field itself. In our trial, we have 4 different media types that are in the middle of our field, our big field, so we can see side-by-side comparisons of what they look like compared to each other.
The field that you see behind us, it's basically we had to put together a trellis to hold the pots up. They're all, it's 1/2-inch conduit with 1.5 inch, 1.25 or something like that, PVC that holds the tower or the pots up off the ground at knee height there. Because we're on a windy location, we had to go through and add some end posts and some ground stakes and a couple 8-foot T-posts staggered throughout with a high tensile wire. There's not really any tension on that wire, but just something to hold those conduit from moving around. You'll notice that our rows are north and south here. The property actually doesn't quite look like it is north and south the way we're sitting here, but it actually is sitting fairly close to north-south. And the reason that they're set there or set up like that way is so that the morning sun can come up and move over and actually catch basically 3 sides of the towers over the course of the day in order to get uniform growth and uniform ripening. It is a management thing that we have to do, though, is go through and rotate those pots 180 degrees once a day. We do that for sunlight. We do that to give the plants a little bit of a break from the wind, and irrigation, water flow distribution through the towers. This is our first trial. This is a mix of the chips that we saw hydrating before that was in the bag. Not ground up though, it's just the chips. And then it's a mix of the peat material that we saw hydrated. And it's mixed at 1 part peat, 3 parts chips, I believe. So the peat holds the water, the chips give us drainage. The chips actually ebb and flow a little bit of nutrients, I think, as well. I can't 100% verify that. So pros to this media is it's fairly well drained, and you can easily change drainage by adding more peat to that mix to suit your needs. Right now we're finding about similar water usage across the board from all our media out here. I don't know that will hold through as plants start to size up though. The next treatment here is the peat that we had, so the ground up peat, mixed up with the chips that we have, but the chips are also ran through the chipper shredder thing. I think we're at 1 part peat and 3 parts of ground up chips out here. The chips themselves are pretty well drained and get pretty dry, and that one is a great option for wet years. So we wanted to see if we could find that same material and make it to be a little bit more suitable for a wet year. You end up with a ton of labor. I mean, because you're already running stuff through the chipper. Then you got to back mix it with the peat, and it doesn't store well. So it's not something we can do during the off season. I've got iron chlorosis on some of these leaves, so I still need to foliar feed it and things like that and account for some of the excessive bleaching that the other media has. So I'm not gaining anything by adding the extra labor to this media. So this one will never be seen on this farm again. Another media that's in the trial, this one is the chips that we had and then ran through the chipper shredder mulcher thing. And it's just a nice fine grain material that we saw earlier. The reason that we like this one is it's very well drained. So we get into a wet year, water moves down through here, and these strawberries are never wet. In fact, we got a 1/2 inch of rain this morning. We may, if it gets sunny and warm out, we may have to irrigate this afternoon. And I should mention all of these are on a twice-a-day irrigation cycle. That's the way we're set up. The challenges on it, though, is the nutrients run out. And then you end up with iron deficiency. So you can see I've got some iron deficiency here. So it becomes really critical to make sure that you're managing putting just enough water on to get everything hydrated, but not too much and leaching excess out. And then coming back in, you're going to have to do some foliar feeding after rain falls. One of the challenges with growing strawberries in these vertical upright towers is water distribution, water holding capacity in these towers. Oftentimes you will see the bottom pots of these towers get too much water, and they start showing signs of iron chlorosis, boron deficiency, and it's very difficult to manage water distribution and nutrient distribution through those vertical towers. Looking at the SARE projects, looking at a lot of the other research, nobody's really doing a lot of research on these vertical towers. They're all flat bed based systems, whether it's farmer ranchers or whether it's university research. We had a very specific question that we wanted to answer, very specific to our farm, but it's applicable to people that are growing vertical strawberries across the country.